Thank you so much. I'm Jeff Saber, and with Sandra, we'll be refereeing the 3 bouts to come. And the first one is a true clash of giants. Nick Hopkins, the lead neurosurgery at University of Buffalo and a giant in the field, is going to take the challenging position regarding who should perform thrombectomy. Nick.
Thanks, Jeff. I don't know about when this is over. I may not be a giant. I may be dead. But I do have body armor underneath all this, guys. So come on, come all. Everybody who's really interested should get into this game. That's the theme. There aren't any disclosures that relate to this. So we all know these numbers, the number 2 cause of death worldwide and so on. What's striking to me is that we're still only, we got 15% penetration in this country, maybe a little higher now, but 15% of all the eligible strokes for intervention are being treated. That's really a shame. Now let me just start with a little my own disclaimer. If you read this slide, it says, I'm over 75, I've paid my dues. You can see what's on the y-axis, and on the x-axis is age, and I will tell you that I'm probably the oldest dude in this room. I did my first stroke intervention in 1982, and I've been doing it ever since. So I'm going to tell you what I really think, and I really don't care what everybody thinks about what I say, so here we go. So acute ischemic stroke, it is the same trajectory as acute myocardial infarction, except we're about 15 years behind the cardiologists, maybe a little more. But it started with lytics, and it moved on, and finally it's intervention. We realized that, opening up the artery when it's occluded is the answer. And why it took us until 2015 to figure that out is amazing. So everybody knows these numbers too. Time is brain, and I learned these numbers from our neurology colleagues, you know, all these neurons that die every minute and so on and so forth. What's relatively less understood or less appreciated is that the 2015 studies, when you broke them all down and looked at the subset analyses, if you got the clot out within 2 hours, you're looking at overall a 90% recovery. And then it drops about 15 to 20% every half hour. After that, you get down to 20% at 6 hours. So the time is so critical. We've always talked about time is muscle in the heart. Well, it's far, far more important with brain. So time to revascularization is the most important thing. 50% of our population lives in smaller towns or rural areas. Where are all the neurointerventionists? They're in major centers, right? Transfer to major centers takes too long. It takes us well outside the 2-hour window. I don't know of any place that can transfer a patient from an hour away and get that artery open within 2 hours of onset. It just doesn't happen. So I think it's going to become a local issue. And so I think this is a public health emergency. We basically got to think about that 2-hour window, and the challenges are enormous because there's tremendous inertia in the system. There's still a problem with patient and physician awareness. There's a cataclysmic specialty shift. And that's what makes me so excited about seeing neurology get into this, because if neurology didn't get into intervention, then the specialty gets left behind. Reimbursement is still how many people that are doing intervention today are getting reimbursed separately? Not by their hospital, but separately. Not very many. And manpower is a huge issue, and so on. Systems of care have to change. With 16 million strokes in the world and a 2-hour goal, we need a lot more interventionalists. Where are they going to come from? They're going to come from cardiology, radiology, and even vascular surgeons can get into this. But I think cardiology and interventional radiology are the most important. Cardiologists have to be involved with this because most strokes actually come from the brain, and cardiologists are also experts in carotid intervention. So they got to be involved. So I ask, what do cardiologists do all day? They urgently fix stenosed and occluded arteries. That's what they do. They're experts at it. They do it on an awake patient and on a moving target. So I think the bottom line is we're at the dawn of a whole new era. And we're going to need a STEMI model with mandated door-to-needle times for a stroke, just like we have in acute myocardial infarction. Know that the infrastructure for this is already available all over the country, right? All over the world, because STEMI has led us to having the infrastructure in place all over the place. And these techniques of removing clots, cardiologists and interventional radiologists are experts. So I'm thinking about a new paradigm. It's drip and ship becomes restore flow and then ship if you need to. Sometimes the patient gets better immediately, you don't need to. So, and for larger cities, of course, we need to train EMS to go directly to major centers where they can have the right kind of intervention. So if you have interest in reading more about what I think, maybe nobody does, but if you do, David Holmes and I have published a couple of pieces, the most recent one a couple of months ago in JACC, just talking about this whole idea of where we're going with stroke. What's important for the patients? That's what counts. There's one other thing that's important. The burden of stroke call is not insignificant. And at this year's SNIS meeting, there was a study that showed 56% of neurointerventionists are suffering from burnout, with all kinds of other issues associated with that. Why? Because how many in this room are doing stroke intervention? Raise your hand. How many of you are on call every other night? A bunch. And how many are covering more than one hospital? Sure. That's where burnout's going to come in. So I think the stake is absolutely huge. This is an international emergency situation. Now that we can cure stroke in many cases, we need to go out and do it. And we're not doing it at this point. So it's all about what's best for our patients. And to me, it all gets down to collaboration. And I think perhaps the most important opportunity right here in this room is neurology collaborating with cardiology. And IR too, but I think it's a little more fitting at this point for cardiology. Why? Because cardiologists basically, they have the right skill set and the right mindset. And neurology is widespread just the way cardiology is. You can partner with cardiologists, and whether you're an interventionalist or not, you can get them to share the burden of getting up in the middle of the night and fishing a clot out of a middle cerebral artery. So I think it's important to realize that going forward, the future has got to be collaboration. We've got to make this a team sport. Let me just finish by saying that anyone that is interested should learn how to do it and join in. It is important to create stroke teams. Collaboration is the important thing. Training is absolutely critical, but you don't need to train cardiologists how to do everything. If they can get the artery open for you, then they've solved a lot of the problem. And so, and by the way, no cardiologist I've ever known would ever be interested enough in doing other things that we do. They don't have the attention span. If their procedure isn't done in 20 minutes, they've lost interest. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to collaborate with another specialty and to really make things happen in stroke worldwide. Thanks.